Cutco reps and managers, Cutco family, I should say. Hey, it's Hal Elrod, and I am honored to give this message today. I was asked by John Kane if I could record this for you, and it really is an honor as you are, I believe, entering into SC1 push period, or depending on when this is shown for you, some of you might be at SC1. I'm not exactly sure, but regardless, the message that I give you today is timeless, and I hope it will make a huge impact for you in your Cutco career, enable you to sell more Cutco than you ever have before, and maybe more than you ever imagined possible, as what I'm going to share with you today enabled me to do exactly that. First, though, I want to share with you how I got started selling Cutco cutlery. I was 19 years old. I was a DJ on the radio. I had a radio gig from midnight to 6 a.m. every Friday night and Saturday night. By the way, when you're a new radio DJ, you get the grunt shift, midnight to 6 a.m. You just take it or leave it, right? So that's what I did. And a buddy of mine sold Cutco. And he would always tell me, Hal, you should come interview for the position at Cutco. You would be great at it. And I would always say no. My friend Teddy, I would say I'm not a salesman. I've never sold anything. I'm a radio DJ. Like, that's my dream. That's what I'm doing. And one day, Teddy brought me to the office. I met my manager, Jesse Levine, and Jesse told me about the Vector opportunity in a way that I had never imagined before. He explained to me that it wasn't just about selling knives and making money. It was really about personal growth. It was about utilizing the Cutco Vector experience to develop the qualities and the characteristics that a person needs to succeed at everything in life. And I can tell you from personal experience that that's exactly what happened. I didn't realize it at the time. I really just liked the idea of being able to earn as much income as I wanted. That's why I took the job. But I can tell you now in hindsight, after I worked with Cutco for 6 years, I sold $754,000 during that time. I was a sales manager for a division office. I ran a branch, so I did almost anything except for a district or division manager in the Cutco company. But as a sales rep and as a manager, what I realized is that the personal growth is what lasts forever. Like, you're going to spend the money, right? Your trophies are going to get dusty. Only the growth lasts forever. And I can tell you now, I say this very humbly, but I'm living the life of my dreams. And as an author of, I've written, 14-ish books, I think, something like that. My real dream to be a motivational speaker, that came true because of the speeches I gave at Cutco. And everything that I have in my life now, all of my personal and professional and business success, I can trace back to it was what I learned at Vector. So I took the position, I went through my training, and at the end of my last day of my training, I decided I wanted to break the fast start record. I had never done anything in my life that was really meaningful or worthwhile, if you will. I was always really a mediocre student. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't very popular when I was in high school. And just coming out of high school, I went to my manager. I said, I want to break the record, the all-time company record. And he said, Hal, do you have any idea what that's going to take? And I said, no, tell me. He said, you're going to have to dedicate yourself and work harder than you've ever worked before for anything for these next 10 days to break the fast start record. And I was kind of intimidated, but I was kind of embarrassed at that point to say no, because I told him I talked a big game that I wanted to break the record. And so I said, I'll do it. You tell me what to do and I'll do it. And during those 10 days, I did 62 Cutco appointments. So 6 a day on average, a little over 6 a day. I made 42 sales, so 67% closing. It wasn't even that great of a closing percentage, and ended up selling $15,000 on the last day. And the lesson that I learned during that time, and in every push period after, and in every Cutco summer, and the time period's arbitrary. You can pick any time period in Vector. But I was able to go out there and achieve things that I never thought were possible. And it was using this formula called the miracle equation. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. I'm going to share with you the miracle equation because this formula has worked not only for me, it's worked for hundreds of other Cutco reps to achieve results beyond what they ever believed were possible. In fact, it was such a powerful formula that it did become my latest book. So The Miracle Equation, This is the formula that I created and learned and practiced and implemented when I was selling Cutco. And it enabled me to have my biggest push periods. It was a $27,000 push period, all because of this miracle equation. And then the cool thing is I taught it to other people, wondering, is it just me? Am I getting lucky? Or will this equation, this miracle equation formula, would this work for anybody, any Cutco rep, if they applied it? And so I taught it to rep after rep after rep after rep. And every single time, Cutco reps went out there and went out and sold more than they ever had before. So I'm going to share with you right now the story of how the miracle equation came to be. And this is the same story that I shared with every Cutco rep that I've ever taught this to, that enabled them to implement it in their own life. So once you hear the story, it's going to teach you the two lessons, the two decisions that you have the power to make now and every day that will enable you to join the top 1%. And not just the top 1% in Vector and Cutco. I'm talking about the top 1% in society. And what I mean by that is, if you study the top 1%, the world's most successful people in all walks of life, whether it's in business, whether it's in athletics, right? If you study Olympians or world champion athletes, you find that they all have this one thing in common. They make two decisions that I call the miracle equation, but these are the two decisions that will move your biggest goals, not just in Cutco, but in every area of your life. Your biggest goals from possible, which is anything's possible, to probable. And once something becomes probable, that's when we get motivated and driven to make it accomplish it, because we start to see that it's probable. And it moves your biggest goals from possible to probable to inevitable. And inevitable is the place where your miracles, your tangible, measurable miracles, results beyond what you currently believe are possible for you, actually become not only possible, but they become inevitable. So the story goes back. I was 20 or 21. It was 21. 20 years old. I was 20 years old. And I wanted to, for the first time in the history of Cutco, I was trying to have 3 $20,000 push periods in a row. No sales rep had ever done that before. And if you've ever gone out and had a great week in Cutco or a great push period, you might have experienced the same thing that I and many other reps have, which is you feel like you got lucky. Right? You start to second guess yourself and doubt yourself and go, man, if it wasn't for that one customer that bought that ultimate set, I never would have hit my goal. If it wasn't for that one customer that referred that other customer that bought the biggest order of my career, I would have never had the week that I had. If it wasn't for that one customer whose friend came over in the middle of the demo and the prospect I was showing Cutco to didn't actually buy, but the friend ended up buying a Homemaker Plus 8. If it wasn't for that, I would have never reached my goal. And we often chalk our success up to luck, right? We do that. We discount our own abilities and we think it was chance, it was luck. So when I had a $20,000 push period, I did exactly that. I thought, man, I got so lucky. Everything fell into place perfectly for me to have that $20,000 push period. And if it wouldn't have fallen into place the way that it did, there's no way I would have reached that goal. Well, when I went for my second $20,000 push period in a row, I felt, well, lightning doesn't strike twice very often. I don't know that I can get lucky twice in a row and get over $20,000. And then I ended up achieving $20,000 that second push period in a row. And then I made some phone calls and I said, has any rep ever done $20,000 3 push periods in a row? And whoever I called it, maybe it was John Kane, I don't remember, but they said no, right? That had never been done before. And so I thought, wow, that inspires me. I want to try to be the first Cutco rep to ever do 20,000 3 times in a row. And going into that third push period, I was scared. I was totally afraid of failure. I was really nervous. And things only got worse. When I went to the team meeting the Wednesday before push period started, I went to the team meeting and our manager dropped a bomb. He said, hey, everybody, I don't know if you heard, but they moved the date of the conference of Summer Conference, I think it was Summer Conference 1 at that time, he said they moved the date up early. So we only have 10 days for this push period instead of the 14 days that you were originally planning on. He said, so you should adjust your goals accordingly. And I go, no, wait. And I raised my hand. I said, Frank, please tell me that because they shortened the push period, this won't count for any kind of records, will it? Right? That wouldn't be fair, because I was going to go for $20,000 and try to set this record. But if we're only getting 10 days out of the 14, that doesn't seem fair. And he cocked his head to the side, said, sorry, Hal. He said it still counts for any kind of record like that. So if you don't do $20,000 for this push period, you'll have to start over again to do 3 in a row. It definitely counts. And I was just heartbroken. My heart sank into my stomach, and I'm going, I can't believe this. Like, I had spent the last few weeks working up the courage and the motivation to be able to achieve this seemingly impossible result that was so scary for me. And I went home that night, and I was in my head, I'm going, what do I do? Should I give up? It's $20,000 the third time in the row felt impossible as it was in 14 days. Doing it in 10 days, that feels like there's no point in even trying. And you have to keep in mind, by the way, this was in the year 2000. So this was, wow, I just dated myself. This was 20 years ago. So the price of Cutco was, I don't even know what, like a homemaker was $725 then, I think, maybe $800. The Ultimate had just come out. It was like $1,500. So the prices and the amount that people were selling back then were a lot less than they are now. I just have to include that, interject that. So what ended up happening, I went home and I was basically had given up. I was like, well, I guess, would have been fun. Would have been cool to do that and set that record, but there's just no way I could do it in 10 days. And as I'm laying there in bed, like tossing and turning, and my mind's kind of racing, I can't sleep. And maybe you've had this happen before, right? Where your mind's racing at night and you have all these ideas coming to you. Well, I got inspired. And I actually remembered something that Dan Cassetta, who at that time was my division manager, and who now is, I believe the Western Region manager, I think, now. But he was the division manager in the Bay Area. And I remembered something that Dan said, and I believe this was a lesson that he learned from the great Jim Rohn. And Dan, to summarize the lesson, Dan said, the purpose of a goal isn't actually to hit the goal. The purpose of a goal is to give you something to shoot for so that you can develop the qualities and the characteristics needed to achieve that goal and any goal. So, in other words, whether or not you hit the goal is really a short-term benefit. But who you become by giving it everything you have, regardless of your results along the way, whether or not you hit the goal, if you give it everything you have, then you become a better version of yourself. You become a more capable version of yourself. And what that does is it enables you to be more equipped to achieve the next goal and the next goal and every goal after that. So it's really this mindset, this realization that, look, whether or not I hit the goal is inconsequential compared to the growth that I experience by committing fully and giving it everything you have, regardless of your results along the way, until the last possible moment. And so that night, I sat up in bed, I turned on my light next to the bedside table, and I pulled out my journal. And I thought, maybe Dan's right. Whether or not I hit the goal ultimately is not the most important thing. It's who I become by giving it everything I have. And so I thought, what if that becomes the goal? What if the growth becomes the goal? And I'm going to pause and invite you to consider this for yourself. Most of us don't set big, outrageous, scary goals because we're afraid of failure, because we mistakenly think that the goal is the goal. But the goal is not the goal. The goal is the growth. So we think, well, I'm not going to set this big goal if I don't know for almost for sure that I can hit it, because I'm afraid of failure. And maybe we can be afraid of failure for different reasons. One is we could be embarrassed. Well, I don't want to set the goal and not hit it. I'll be embarrassed, right? I don't want to tell anybody I'm going for this big goal. Then I don't hit it and I look like a failure, right? Or we might just not want to feel like a failure for ourselves. We think, well, I don't want to hit it I don't want to set it and not hit it, because then I'll be a failure. And I don't want to be a failure. I'll feel like a failure, right? So it's often just an insecurity. But when you realize that, well, wait a minute, not hitting the goal is inconsequential to the level of commitment and dedication that I give toward the goal. And here's the thing. If you commit to a goal fully and you don't hit it, again, you are now better equipped. You're more capable to achieve the next goal because you develop the qualities and the characteristics such as perseverance and resilience and focus and commitment and discipline, right? All the qualities and characteristics that you develop by waking up every day and giving it everything you have, even if you're not on track for the goal. So that night in bed, I decided and I wrote this in my journal, I am committed to give it everything I have to sell $20,000 in 10 days, regardless of the results, no matter what. There is no other option. I'd encourage you to write that down. If you're watching a video that you can pause and rewind, you might not. You're watching this probably as a group. So let me just say that again. Write this down. I am 100% committed to give it everything I have to sell blank, whatever your goal is, whatever your commitment is, regardless of my results along the way. No matter what, there is no other option. Now, it's important that you have regardless of my results along the way in there, because here's what happens for most of us. Most of us, when we set a goal, we're all motivated and excited and committed in the beginning. But what happens is, as soon as we encounter an obstacle, a defeat, a day of no sales, some canceled appointments, when things don't go as planned, then what usually happens is our faith that we can do it, our belief in ourselves, our belief that it's possible, it goes right out the window, right? It goes right out the window and you think, oh man, I went out and I sold nothing my first day. Like, there's no way, I'm not on track for the goal. Or I'm 3 days in and I've only sold $200. Or I'm halfway through the push period, but I'm not halfway to the goal. I'm not even a quarter of the way to the goal. So what happens is, as soon as our faith goes out the window, the effort that's required flies right out the window after it. So when we lose faith that the goal is possible, then we lose the drive to put forth the necessary effort to make it possible. So I decided, and I'm going to say this again, if you haven't written it down, if you didn't get it all, say it again. I am committed to selling, for you it's blank, right? I'm committed to giving it everything I have to sell $20,000 in the next 10 days, regardless of my results along the way. No matter what, there is no other option. And so what that meant for me is that even if it's the last day of push and my goal is 20,000 and I'm only at 4,000, I'm going to give it everything I have for that final day to reach my goal, even if it's impossible. Because again, the qualities and the characteristics that you develop by giving it everything you have until the last moment, that's what makes you. That's what makes you into the person that not only will achieve your future Cutco goals, but if you don't plan on being with Cutco the rest of your life, that's okay. I thought I was going to be, and I decided to do some other stuff, write some books and all this stuff. But regardless of whether or not you're going to be, a vector manager and be the CEO of the company someday, right? Or a sales rep, Hall of Fame sales rep, or you're going to do Cutco for a summer or for a few summers or run a branch, and then you're going to go do something else. You've got a career in mind. Who you become during your time at Vector will determine who you are for the rest of your life. And again, that's what I realized the greatest benefit of Cutco. I kind of said this earlier. I'll say it again. I might say it one more time later. But it's who you become. And it's developing yourself into the type of person that you need to be now to achieve everything else that you want for your life. That was the greatest thing that I utilized Vector for. Not just the money, not just the accolades, not just the work experience, but it was the personal growth, the personal development that to this day, it's so funny. I was asked the other day on a podcast interview, Hal, can you leave the audience with one lesson? Like, what's the greatest lesson you've ever learned? You want to know what it was? It was a lesson that I learned at Cutco from our division manager, Brad Britton, way back in the day. And it was do the right thing, not the easy thing, right? I'm off on a slight tangent here, but the point is, right, do the right thing, not the easy thing. The greatest lesson I've learned in my entire life, I learned my first summer selling Cutco, right? And if I were to list the top 10 lessons that I've learned in my life that are responsible for the success and the happiness and everything that I have now, I'm just guessing, but I would guess that probably 7 out of 10 of the greatest lessons that I've learned in my life came when I was a Vector rep. Now, I want to say this, and then I'm going to dive into the miracle equation. I'm going to share with you this story. I want to share with you this. I have dozens of friends that sold Cutco. Now, most of them stuck with Cutco for a long period of time, and they achieved a significant amount of success with Cutco, and now they've taken who they became working for Vector and selling Cutco, and now they're extremely successful in other areas of their life. I have one friend who was a top Cutco rep. He became an FSM, and now his net worth is $10 million. I have another rep who broke, he was the fast start record breaker, and then he went on into real estate, right? And he earns over $1 million a year in real estate. And by the way, he buys Cutco gifts from me to give to all of his real estate customers. So I have a lot of friends that did really well with Cutco, and now they're doing really well in every area of their life because of who they became. But I just want to share with you a few cautionary tales. I have a few friends that quit selling Cutco because they had a bad week, because they had a bad push period. Things didn't go the way that they wanted or hoped, and they quit. They gave up because it was uncomfortable. They decided to go get an easy job where they could just clock in, clock out, they got a paycheck, they didn't have to be self-motivated, they didn't have to be disciplined or driven or resilient. They just had to clock in, clock out, and collect their easy, although small paycheck. And those same people that took the easy way out when they were selling Cutco and they quit and gave up before they fulfilled their potential with Vector, those same friends, and I'm not going to name names because they might watch this, but I'm picturing in my head all of those friends. There's about a handful of them. Compared to the dozens of my friends that stuck with Cutco, the handful that quit too soon because it got difficult, they're struggling in their life to this day. It's been 20 years, and they're still, all but one. I'm thinking of 5 right now, 4 out of the 5. So 80% of the people that quit Cutco early because it got difficult, they had a bad week, bad month, whatever, they're struggling in life today. So anyway, I hope you get the point that what I'm about to share with you isn't just about helping you have a big push period or have a big summer. Yes, it will do that. But this miracle equation strategy is about teaching you the 2 decisions that the world's most successful people make every single day in all walks of life, and it's responsible for their success. In fact, I don't know if you can read it from there, it's probably too small, but the subtitle of the miracle equation book are the 2 decisions that move your biggest goals from possible to probable to inevitable. So here we go. 20 years old, laying there at night, woke up, decided I'm going to give it everything I have to sell $20,000 in 10 days. And I committed to give it everything I have. And I asked myself, what are the decisions that I have to make today that I have to maintain for the next 20 days in order to achieve, or the next 10 days in order to achieve this seemingly impossible Cutco goal? And I asked myself, well, what would cause me to fail? And I already actually mentioned this to you earlier. Number 1, if I lose faith, if I give up the faith that achieving my goal is possible, then it becomes impossible. Because if I don't have faith, then I'm not going to have any drive to put forth the effort. And that was the second decision I realized. So number 1, I have to maintain unwavering faith, regardless of my results along the way, every single day until the last possible moment. Number 2, I thought the other reason that I would not achieve the goal is if I stop putting forth the necessary effort. And like I said, when the faith goes out the window, the faith goes out the window first, the effort flies right behind it, because why would you put forth effort towards something you don't actually believe is going to happen? So I decided, number one, I have to maintain unwavering faith, which means I've got to tell myself every day, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I can reach this goal, I'm committed, I'm going to give it everything I have. That was the faith piece. That was my internal dialogue. I had to read that affirmation. I am committed to giving it everything I have to sell $20,000 in 10 days, no matter what. There is no other option. And I missed the part, regardless of my results along the way, right? So that was my affirmation. I literally, by the way, I wrote that on a piece of paper. You might write it on your smartphone, right? And every day, whenever I was feeling self-doubt or fear, when I had a canceled order or a phone time session that didn't go very well, or I had a customer not buy something, or a no-show, or whatever, anything that got me feeling discouraged or afraid that I was going to fail, I pulled out my affirmation and I read it. I am committed to giving it everything I have to sell $20,000 in the next 10 days, regardless of my results along the way. No matter what, there is no other option. And that was how I maintained unwavering faith. And I'm going to encourage you to write that down for your goal for this push period, for this week, for the summer, whatever it is. The miracle equation is not a one-time thing. This is a way of life. It's a way of showing up and approaching every goal and every challenge that you're faced with. The second decision is I'm committed to put forth extraordinary effort until the last possible moment. Extraordinary effort, right? Meaning I'll give it everything I have every single day for the push period. Now, these two decisions I was equipped with. This is what I went out and I approached my push period with. And the first, now let's do some simple math. In order to sell $20,000 in 10 days, I had to sell an average of $2,000 a day, right? $2,000 a day, 10 days, $20,000. Now that meant I had 1 week to sell $14,000, and then I had 3 more days to sell the other $6,000, and then the next morning I had to get on a bus and drive 2 hours from Fremont, California to San Jose, maybe an hour and a half, to go to the conference. And I went out the first week and I followed through with the miracle equation. And by the way, the reason I called it the miracle equation is because I thought these are the two decisions that in order to reach this goal, it would feel like a miracle, right? That's why I called it the miracle equation. So I gave it everything I had. I maintained unwavering faith. Those first 7 days, I needed to sell $14,000 to be on track for my goal, and I sold $7,000. So if you could imagine, giving it everything you have. And maybe you've experienced this before, where you give it everything you have. I mean, I was working morning until night for those first 7 days, and I sold $7,000, which meant I had $13,000 to go and only 3 days to sell it. I went into my office to turn in my orders for that first week. And my manager said, Hal, I know you've been working like crazy. I know you're going for $20,000, so you need to be around $14,000 of orders. Is that $14,000 in orders that you just handed in? And I was about to cry. I was like, not even close, man. It's $7,000 in orders. And he said, okay, well, no, it's okay. And he's encouraging me. It's okay, Hal. He said, look, why don't you lower your goal? He said, go for $10,000. He said, having, two $20,000 push periods and then another $10,000 push period, that's still amazing, He said, why don't you lower the goal? You've got 3 days left. Go have 3 grand days and you'll end up at over $10,000 for the push. And you see, here's an interesting thing about unwavering faith, you guys. When you tell yourself that affirmation that I read to you, that I hope you've written down, and I hope you're going to read that every single day during your SC1 push period, or whenever you're watching this next week, right? This next week, whatever time period that is for you, whatever's going on in Cutco, that affirmation, when I kept saying, I am committed to give it everything I have to sell $20,000 in 10 days, regardless of my results along the way, no matter what, there's no other option. It's brainwashing yourself. When I told myself that over and over and over and over and over again, what I was doing is I was programming my subconscious mind, and this is exactly what you'll be doing. You're programming your subconscious mind for success. You're programming your subconscious mind with the level of commitment that you need to have. So when you say something over and over and over and over and over again with conviction, it becomes your reality. Now, most of us say the wrong thing. Most of us say, oh man, I'm not going to reach my goal. There's no way I'm going to reach my goal. I'm not on track to reach my goal. I'm going to fail. And that becomes our reality. We're programming our subconscious mind either to succeed or to fail with the language that we use. So by being intentional and choosing the language that reinforces your commitment, when my manager said, Hal, why don't you lower your goal and go for, a $10,000 push? It didn't even take more than a second. I looked him in the eye and I said, I don't think you understand. I am committed to give it everything I have to sell $20,000 during this 10-day push period, regardless of my results along the way, no matter what. There's no other option. You guys see that the words that I had repeated to myself for the previous 7 days are the words that came out of my mouth to my manager, because that was my new program. 7 days before, I was terrified. I didn't really believe I could sell $20,000 in 10 days. Well, now I had convinced myself that I could. However, I was still scared because I only had 3 days to sell $13,000. I've never done anything like that before. However, I was committed to give it everything I had regardless of my results, because remember this. Remember, if you're in the middle of your push and you're not on track, not only do you repeat the miracle mantra, I call that the miracle mantra, by the way, I'm committed to giving it everything I have to sell blank in the next blank days, regardless of my results, no matter what, there's no other option. That's your miracle mantra. By repeating that over and over and over again, I was committed to follow through, because remember, the goal, whether or not you hit the goal, that's not the most important thing. I knew that I was developing a level of commitment to giving it everything I had to reach a goal that I had never had in my life before. And remember, that growth is what you're after. That growth doesn't come from reaching the goal. It comes from your effort and your faith, your commitment to giving it everything you have. And so I went out in those next 3 days and I sold $10,000. Now, you might say, well, that's great, Hal, but you were still short of your goal, right? You're still a little short of the goal, because my goal was $20,000 and I was at $7,000 after week 1. The next 3 days I sold $10,000, which was a miracle in and of itself, but that put me at $17,000. And I almost accepted that as the final. I almost went, wow, these last 3 days have been amazing. I made a bunch of money. I'm sure I'll be one of the top push period winners. And I almost threw in the towel and said, well, that's it. But my voice in my head kept saying, Hal, you're committed to giving it everything you have, regardless of the results, till the last possible moment. And I thought, I looked at my schedule, I looked at this conference start time, and I thought, wait a minute. I called my manager. I said, hey, I know you want me to be on the bus. I know I'm a leader for our team. However, I'm calling in a favor. I said, I can schedule 2 appointments tomorrow morning and then drive myself to the conference and still make it on time to meet you. But I'm $3,000 away from my goal, and I committed to give it everything I had until the last possible moment. I said, and the last possible moment hasn't arrived yet. Like, if you can give me a pass, I would love to go for this. I can schedule 2 appointments tomorrow morning. And he said, Hal, normally I would say no, but I've never seen you this committed. I've never seen you work this hard or this dedicated. I'll approve that. Go ahead and schedule 2 appointments. Good luck. I hope you get to 20 grand, and we'll see you at the conference. So I got on the phone. I scheduled 2 appointments for the next morning. I went out for those 2 appointments in the morning. I'm driving to the first one, and I kept repeating that miracle mantra. By the way, that's I encourage you to do that. I would roll down the windows and go, I am committed to selling $20,000 in the next, or during these 10 days for this push. No matter what, there's no other option. I would just say it over and over and over and over and over again. I would shout it out with the windows down on the freeway going 70 miles an hour, right? I was really, really convicted. And I go to my first appointment and I knock on the door and I'm like, all right, I got to sell 1,500 per appointment. This is, I got to go big. I knock on the door again and nobody answers the door. To keep a long story short, she wasn't there. She forgot about the appointment. I go sit down the street for my next appointment. I'm freaking out. I'm going, no, this can't be happening. Like, I only have one appointment. I have to sell $3,000. What? Are you kidding me? Again, 20 years ago. That was a lot of Cutco back then. It's probably still a lot of Cutco. I go to my last appointment. I knock on the door. A woman answers, but she has a very heavy European accent. And I asked for the lady that I went to see. I think her name was, I can't remember, Sarah? Mary? I don't know, it doesn't matter. So I go, hey, we'll say Mary. Is Mary here? And the woman said, no, she's gone for the day. And I said, no. You don't understand. We have an appointment scheduled right now. This is my last appointment. It's really, really important. Would you mind maybe giving her a call? And she said, well, I can call her, but she's 2 hours away. She must have forgotten. I'm so sorry. And so she goes, she calls, and the woman, she's gone. She's not going to be back in time for the appointment. And I'm just heartbroken. I'm like, I thought it was really going to happen. I was so close. And the woman says, can I help you? And you guys, I'm telling you the details of the story, by the way, because you have to understand that when you live by this miracle equation, things happen in miraculous fashion. And I'm going to and you're about to hear how this unfolds for me, and then I'm going to give you a few examples of how it unfolded the exact same way for almost every single person that I've taught the miracle equation to that has applied it. It's almost always comes at the last minute, on the last day, the last appointment, the last hour, when it looks like you're not going to make it toward your goal. For the few people that maintain unwavering faith and put forth extraordinary effort until the last possible moment, miracles happen. So for me, I was about to give up. The woman says, I'm from Europe. I'm visiting for my brother-in-law's 50th birthday party next week. She said, can I help you with anything? And I'm thinking in my head, the lady on vacation for her brother's 50th birthday party from Europe, she's not going to buy $3,000 worth of knives and fly them back to Europe, right? Like, that's just not happening. So I said, thank you, but no thank you, and I was crushed. And she's about to close the door, and then I had my voice, I go, wait a minute. I committed to give it everything I have until the last possible moment, and the last possible moment has not yet arrived. And so I said, wait, actually, ma'am, would you mind if I did a presentation for you to show you kitchen products? I explained the whole thing to her. I said, my last appointment, I would really appreciate it. So even though I didn't actually believe that she was going to buy $3,000 worth of knives, I committed to give it everything I had until the last possible moment. And then only then is when miracles become possible. I went in. She said, sure. I went in. I did the best demo I could possibly do, which it took everything in me because I was like, this is a waste of time, Like I'm just wasting time right now. But I thought, I've got to give it my all. I have to give it my all. So I do the best demo I can, and she tells me two things that make me think this must be a miracle. Number one, she says, it's so interesting that you're showing me kitchen cutlery because my husband and I were looking at a set of Hinkle, top-of-the-line Hinkle in Europe right before we flew out here for our vacation, but we decided to wait. Something inside us, she literally said something inside us, I think she said it was her husband, said they should wait until they went on their trip to America and came back before they bought the set of knives. I thought, what are the odds that this woman was just looking at a set of Hinkle and her intuition said she should wait until the trip was over to America. The second thing she tells me, we've been looking for the perfect birthday present for my brother's 50th birthday party, but we haven't been able to find it. And then she tells me what his passion is, his favorite hobby in the world. Can you guess what it is? If you guess cooking, you're right. And I end up selling her, she ends up buying 2 ultimate sets, which back then were $1,500 each. And it ends up getting, the CPO on the order, she bought some accessories, was $3,017. and I finished the push period at, I believe it was $20,138. Don't quote me exactly on that. I left her house with a $3,000 order, and I drove to the conference having broken the record, selling $20,000 for the third push 3 times in a row. Now, as soon as that happened, I felt, just as I said earlier, when we have an amazing result, like it was luck. I thought, man, I got lucky. That lady at the end. But then I started to think, maybe it wasn't luck. Maybe it wasn't luck. And so I tried it on my next push period, and I sold $20,000 a fourth time using the miracle equation, and it played out in very similar fashion. It didn't start out good, and it was toward the down to the wire on the last day when I reached the goal. But then I thought, maybe I'm just lucky. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. So I decided I was going to teach it to other Cutco reps that I was coaching at the time, that I was working with. Jerry Azinger was the first Cutco rep that she said, Hal, will you teach me the miracle equation? I want to have my first ever $15,000 push period. And by the way, just to be clear, whatever your goal is, it doesn't have to be a $20,000 push period. It could be a $5,000 fast start or a $10,000 push period or a $10,000 month or whatever. Whatever your miracle is, right? It's individual for everybody. So Jerry said, I want to sell $15,000 for push, Hal. My biggest push is $12,000, and I've never been able to get to $15,000. It really scares me. Do you think the miracle equation, will you teach it to me so I can sell $15,000? And I said, Jerry, I'll teach you the miracle equation, but only if you'll go for $20,000 because I believe that you can do it. Just because you've never done it doesn't matter. I believe that if you use the miracle equation, that you can absolutely sell $20,000 during the next push period. And she goes, she's like, Hal, that terrifies me. She goes, that's so far out of my comfort zone. And this is Jerry, who's now sold millions of dollars worth of Cutco, right? This was 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And she said, I'll go for it. I'll do it. And so Jerry goes out, and she texts me the night before. She says, Hal, it's playing out just the night before the last day of push period. She said, it's playing out the way yours did. She said, I'm at $17,000 and I've got 1 day left. She had a full day of demos. It was 6 demos. She said, I'm scared. I haven't had that many days over $3,000 like this, but I believe the miracle equation, if it worked for you, it'll work for me. And Jerry went out and she sold $5,000 the next day, and she texted me saying, the miracle equation works, Hal. I just sold $5,000 and I got over $22,000 for push. Then Fabian Valencia came to me and said, Hal, I want to have a $10,000 push. My biggest push ever, I think, was like $6,000 at the time. I said, Fabian, okay, I'll teach you the miracle equation. And by the way, all I did was tell him the same story that I told all of you. I just told him how I applied the miracle equation, how I maintained unwavering faith through that miracle mantra, and I put forth extraordinary effort every single day until the last possible moment. And I achieved that push period miracle. I told Fabian the same story. Fabian went out. He had 2 weeks to sell 10 grand. His first week, he sold $2,000. Again, imagine how you would feel and how you might feel, because this is how it seems to work. We're tested when we commit to these 2 decisions. When you commit to the miracle equation, you'll be tested. When you go out there and say, I'm going to sell, Fabian $10,000 in 2 weeks. He's only sold $2,000 the first week. That meant he worked as hard as he could, and in 7 days he sold $2,000. And now somehow he had to work just as hard and sell $8,000. And you might be able to guess how this played out. Fabian, applying the miracle equation, sold $8,000 the second week. He had never even had a push period over $8,000, and he sold $8,000 the second week. And the last story I want to tell you, and then we'll wrap this up, it's Robert Arauco. Robert, I was coaching at the time. He was 19 years old. His biggest push period ever he had was a $10,000 push period. So he had a big push period, but he said, Hal, I want to have a $20,000 push period. Will you teach me the miracle equation? So I taught it to Robert exactly as I taught it to you. I simply told him the story of how I applied it so he could apply it the same way. And Robert asked me a question that I wasn't expecting. He said, Hal, if the miracle equation works to sell $20,000 for push, do you think it would work to sell $30,000 for push? And I said, I don't think there's any limit to the size of the miracle you can create, Robert. I personally have never had a $30,000 push period, but I would love for you to prove that the miracle equation works to sell $30,000 in a push period. Robert went out. His first week, he sold $10,000. He somehow, there were no more hours in a day, but he had to sell $20,000 the second week. Can you imagine what an undertaking that was? Well, Robert went out that second week and he sold $15,000. He was at $25,000 for push. And he called me that the night before. He had to get on a bus in the morning and go with his team to the conference. And he called me and said, Hal, I'm at $25,000. I can't believe it. It's amazing, but I don't know what to do. He said, I called my manager. I can't get out of the bus ride tomorrow. I have to ride the bus. Is there anything else I can do? And we brainstormed together. And I said, Robert, what if you were to call back every customer that you saw during the push period? Call back everyone that bought from you and let them know how close you are to your goal and say there's no pressure, but you just want to, and just make a few suggestions of other things they might have liked on the demo that they didn't get and see if they might add anything onto their order. I said, and call everyone that didn't buy from you, let them know how close to your goal you are. And again, don't pressure them. Say like, look, I don't want you to buy just to help me with my goal, but I committed. It's okay, by the way, to share your mantra with your customers along the way. I'm committed to giving it everything I have because I want to become a better version of myself, right? So I'm going to give everything I have to the last moment, regardless of my results along the way. So Robert had told his customers that on every demo and every service call. So he simply said, hey, like I told you, I'm giving it everything I have till the end, but there's no pressure to buy anything. I just thought it couldn't hurt to ask. So Robert said, okay, Hal, that's so out of my comfort zone. I'm totally uncomfortable to call on my customers, but I'll do it. I'll give it everything I have. So Robert had like a 90-minute or a 2-hour bus ride the next morning. He called back every single customer, those that bought, those that didn't. He called me back an hour or so later and he said, Hal, the miracle equation pardon my phrase, it freaking works. He said, I just sold $6,000 in an hour on the phone, and I'm at $31,000 for push. Guys and gals, that's all you need to know. If it worked for me to sell $20,000, $13,000 of it the last 3 days of push, $3,000 on the last demo, it'll work for you. If the miracle equation worked for Jerry Azinger to sell $20,000 for her first push ever, first $20,000 push, $5,000 the last day, it'll work for you. The miracle equation will work for you. The miracle equation worked for Fabian Valencia to sell $2,000 his first week and $8,000 his second week. The miracle equation will work for you. And if the miracle equation worked for Robert Arauco to sell $10,000 his first week and $20,000 the second week with $5,000, actually $6,000 coming in the last hour over the phone to the customers that he just saw. The miracle equation will work for you. Set your goal in writing. Write down your unwavering faith in this way. The miracle mantra, write down, I am committed to give it everything I have to sell blank amount of Cutco in blank amount of days, regardless of my results along the way. No matter what, there is no other option. That's your first decision. That's how you control your inner world. Whenever you have a no sale, a no show, whenever you're not on track for your goal, pull out your mantra, pull out your phone, pull out the paper, wherever you write it down and recite it over and over and over and over and over again. Brainwash yourself in a positive way to be committed, fully committed to give it everything you have, which is your extraordinary effort. Give it everything you have, regardless of your results along the way, until the last possible moment. No matter what, there's no other option. And when you live with those two decisions, when you live by the miracle equation, you join the world's most successful people in the way that they approach life. Athletes approach the sports. They give it everything they have to the last possible moment, even if it doesn't look like they can win. And that's when you see buzzer beaters. That's when you see comebacks. That's when you see the seemingly impossible become possible and become inevitable. The miracle equation is the formula, the two decisions that move your biggest goals from possible to probable to inevitable. And I can tell you, as someone who sold Cutco for 6 years of my life, one of the best experiences of my life, and like I said, everything I have today is because of how I approached my vector opportunity. And everything that you want for your life now and for the rest of your life in your future is available to you in terms of the qualities and the characteristics that you develop now while you're selling Cutco. The money's great, the recognition's great, the community's great, but the personal growth and development is your greatest asset, your greatest benefit that you can take from Cutco, from Vector, that will last the rest of your life. And the only way to truly maximize the Vector opportunity is to maintain unwavering faith and put forth extraordinary effort in each and every Cutco goal that you set. So thank you for this time. I love you. I went over by 5 minutes. Hope you got some value. I appreciate you. And I cannot wait to hear from your managers about the miracles that you create, the challenges you'll overcome along the way, and it'll often happen in the last moment, but you can make that miracle happen for you. I love you guys and gals. I'll talk to y'all soon.